It's great to be back with you. It's been a while since I've been over here. But I got to tell you, I'm over here because Bellevue is bullish on children. We're going to talk about that in our time together. Barbara and I are bullish on children as well. I want to show you a little picture of our family as we got together to celebrate as we stepped out of the leadership of family life. That's a few of our 24 grandchildren. I have to share with you, though, my motives were a bit mixed in coming over here because this is the home of number 24. Josh and Laura Dries popped the picture up of Josh and Laura. Little Lincoln, I call him President Lincoln because he is the president. And then the next picture of Josh, and I looked into those eyes this morning, prayed for him, thanked God for him. Children are God's reminder that we've got to pass it on to the next generation. I've had a lot of privileges in my life, but one of the top privileges I've ever had in ministry in 48 years was teaching a 6th grade Sunday school class for our church. I taught it 11 years. Now, my kids didn't know this, but the reason I taught the class was so that I could teach them as they emerged from childhood into adolescence. And I taught it to teach them, as well as the other kids, what God expects of them as young people. And one of the ways I taught this class was I would pull out traps, mouse trap, rat trap, a beaver trap, a muskrat trap, and I even got a bear trap from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. And I would hold these traps up, and they were all labeled of the traps they were going to face in adolescence. And in the last session that I would teach those kids, as we taught it all year, I would set all those traps up on the stage, and I would conclude the time with an illustration that I decided to use in another setting. Because it was so powerful with 11 and 12-year-olds, I thought perhaps it'll be powerful as I speak to 51,000 men at Mile High Stadium in Denver, Colorado. And so on the stage, we had all these traps, and they were labeled pornography, drugs, alcohol, peer pressure, 13 of them. And I had selected a father and a son, and I had these traps set. I had some men come forward to set the bear trap. And on this side of the stage, I put a young man who was 15 years old on this side. And I said, now I want you to come to us over there when I tell you to, because your dad and I are going to be over here. And to illustrate the vulnerability of young people today, I want to put a blindfold on this young man as he steps out. And I said, I want you to take your shoes off. Now, on the count of 3, come to me, okay? And it was like somebody had sucked the air out of that stadium with 51,000 men. Is he really going to do that? And so I said, 1, 2. And before I said 3, his dad grabbed the microphone and said, son, don't move. I'll be right there. And so the father made his way across the stage. And he walked over to his son. He said, put your hands on my shoulders, son, and stick close, because they really are set. The traps are out there. And so they began to shuffle their feet together as he began to wind his way through those traps. And some guy up on the top of that stadium started clapping. And others joined in. And before that father and son had arrived at the other side, and the son took his blindfold off and hugged his dad, the entire stadium of men was weeping and standing on their feet. Now, I'd only done this illustration with 75 kids in the room and a few of their parents. I was unprepared for what would take place in that stadium, and I scratched my head and I thought, what's being expressed there? Why are those men standing and applauding? And I think 2 reasons. One is I think many of them were applauding to see somebody who did it, and they wished they had, secondly, they wished they had had a dad who would have helped them through the traps of life. And they were cheering and clapping because of it. Ladies and gentlemen, the traps today, compared to 1999, are far more lethal and dangerous. We have got our work cut out for us in the Christian community because one person did get it right. It does take a village. It takes a community to raise children today. We need one another as we raise children today. And I have been spending some time in this passage. I have probably read this passage 100 times. And I want you to listen to this passage as we pop it on the screen. It's Psalm 78. It's a generational mandate. This is not for somebody else. This is for us today. Psalm 78, verse 1. Notice how it starts. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, things that we have heard and known that our fathers have told us. Look at this next statement. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the generation to come the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might, and the wonders that he has done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn. There's at least four generations in this passage. Some believe 5. And arise and tell them to their children. And then you have 2 purpose clauses in this passage. Why are we doing that? So that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. And that they should not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation whose heart was not steadfast, whose spirit was not faithful to God. Our assignment is to take the truth of this book and introduce the next generation to the God of this book and help them understand what he says they need to know to be successful in life. And if that passage wasn't enough, go over to Psalm 125 and take a look at this if you have your Bible. And just look at these verses right here, verses 4 through 7. Again, we find the generational mandate. One generation shall commend your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. On the glorious splendor of your majesty and on your wondrous works I will meditate. They shall speak of the might of the awesome deeds, and I will declare your greatness. I love this next phrase. They shall pour forth the fame of your abundant goodness and shall sing aloud of your righteousness. Our assignment is to show God off, to give our children the fame of God, the experience of God. And yet it seems today there are parents who are being blinded to this mandate. I'm reminded of Helen Keller, who was born blind, of a statement she made in response to the question, Helen, is there anything worse than being blind? To which she said, yes. The most troubling thing is to have sight but have no vision. I loved when we started our service up here with kids. This is the vision. How do we keep them out of the traps? How do we implant in their hearts a love for Jesus Christ? How do we help them avoid being a casualty? I'm here to remind you of the value of children and also our responsibility with the next generation. There is no retirement generationally in the Scriptures. Generations are responsible for future generations. Back in 1990, I decided I would take a year and I would study the Scriptures and I would try to reduce down what God expected of me as a father, Barbara as a mother, in our home to teach our kids, and see if I could come to the point of concluding with the essence. What is the essence of what God expects of us as parents? And I want to share with you those 4 things this morning because I think these are the generational connectors that release children to become who God created them to be. The first one, the first biblical mandate for the next generation, relationships. Children need to be trained to wholeheartedly love God and others. Now, how did I find that? That was pretty easy in the New Testament. Jesus was asked, "What's the foremost commandment?" And Jesus said this. Remember what he said? It can be summarized in one word, love. It's in the mission statement of Bellevue. Love Jesus. Love people. That's where you got it. Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments depend all the law and the prophets. Jesus basically said this. We were made for relationships. Relationship with God, that's why he came, to get us into a relationship with him and to get us into heaven, to forgive us our sins, but also to pour out his love on us so that we might know how to love other people. We were made for a relationship. The assignment for a parent is this: to take your child's hand in yours and reach up and introduce your child to Jesus Christ and his love and begin to help him experience that. Now, how do you do that? That's a lofty assignment. Well, you do that by teaching this book. You do that by living out this book. And so when Barbara and I were married in 1972 in Boulder, Colorado, we didn't have very much furniture. We got together and we decided before we exchanged gifts with each other, we would give God something that was very near and dear to our hearts. We would give our lives and our marriage, and if God blessed, our family to him. And we signed over a contract, a title deed to our lives to God. Barbara filled hers out, I filled mine out. We got together, read them to one another. That was the most costly gift I could have given God. I gave him my desire to be successful in ministry, to have a couple of kids. That's kind of interesting. My desire to be a good skier. Some of the things that I wrote down were silly. We opened those envelopes some 20 years later, and we looked at what we had given God, and we looked at our lives and how abundant they were, because we had not done it perfectly, but we had surrendered our lives to Christ, and he had filled us up. He will enable you to experience life the way he designed it to the full if you do that. I believe those 2 sheets of paper are the 2 most valuable sheets of paper that we have in our safe. Why? Because we settled the issue with Almighty God. We bowed our wills in surrender and gave him what we hoped to have and everything we did have, and gave it to him. So that as he began to bless us with kids, 6 children in 10 years, one's adopted. We don't know which one it is, but one of them is adopted. As we raised those kids, we realized our assignment was to introduce them to Christ and hopefully share some of the affection that he had for us with them. I will never forget leaving for a trip. And my daughter followed me out to the garage. This was back when we used to have a car that would fit in the garage. She was 10 years old. We'd had all 6 of our kids. And she came out, and she put her hand on my forearm as I was about to drive out, and she said, "Daddy?" And I said, "What, princess?" She said, "I'm afraid." I said, "Of what?" "I'm afraid your plane's going to crash." Well, all of a sudden it dawned on me, as we had been driving back from vacation that summer, we had listened to a live broadcast from Dallas-Fort Worth of a Delta airliner that had crashed at the airport. And all the kids and us heard it, and we listened to the drama. And Ashley was now paralyzed by that fear. She said, "I don't want you to go." And she tightened her grip on my forearm. And so I began to explain to Ashley how these engines are made by guys who make Rolls-Royce engines. They're engineers, they're maintained, they're looked after much more than our car. And I could tell, I was looking at her face, this isn't working. She doesn't need an engineering lesson. She needs her daddy to point her to the one who can meet her in her fear. And so I said, "Ashley, you got to trust God with this." I said, "Ashley, it's as though you've got all these cords running from you to your mom and me. And what we've got to do as your parents," and I took her hand in mine, is I said, we've got to help you unplug from us and plug in, and I lifted above her head, and plug into Jesus Christ. And she looked up at that invisible cord, and she said, "But what if you don't want to?" And I said, taking her hand in mine again, "But you gotta," and plugged her back in. And then I prayed with her, and I said, "Jesus Christ is going to be in that bedroom with you when I leave. You need to learn to trust him with your fears. These will not be the last fears you have." And she went upstairs and went about her duties and prayed. Later on, I was doing some typing at the computer a couple of days later. I was doing some typing, and my son Benjamin came in, who was 8 years old. And I said, "What's wrong, buddy?" He said, "I'm afraid burglars are going to come in and get us." I said, "Well, son, you're at the top of the stairs, and Dad's right here by the stairs. They got to come through me to get to you." And then it dawned on me, God was once again giving me a chance to teach, to instruct. And so I talked to Ben about, my son Benjamin, about unplugging and plugging in. About that time, Ashley came down the stairs and said, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, Benjamin was afraid." And she got this grin on her face. She said, "Ben, you're afraid?" And so she shared with Ben what I'd talked to her about. And I remember them walking up the stairs. She had her arm around him, talking to him about learning to trust the one who loved her the most. That's a family. It doesn't mean we're going to do it perfectly. It just means we've got to be intentional to do it on a regular basis, over and over and over again. And let me just say, back to Psalm 78. Psalm 78 says in there, "For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law." Listen, parents, grandparents, you know what the next generation desperately needs to hear? Is your testimony. How Jesus Christ invaded your life and how he gave you purpose, meaning, and brought you out of a ditch, or gave you the right meaning and purpose to your life and forgave you of your sins. I fear we look too much to the megachurch to solve all the problems for our families when God has given parents the assignment of passing on their faith. It's not either or, it's both and. We have to teach our kids over and over and over again, but make sure they're hearing you, that Jesus Christ is alive in your life and what he's teaching you and what you learned this past week out of the Word, or something he did as you went about your duties at work. Share those things. Our children need to see how Jesus Christ invades a life and changes it. The first mandate, teaching your children to love God. in others. The second one is the word character. Boy, is that needed today. Children need to be equipped in knowing how to make wise decisions and not be a fool. Character is built as we teach the fear of God. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction." Goes on in Proverbs 9:10. I don't have that one up there, but Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." You know what wisdom is? Godly skill in everyday living. Our children need to be taught how God can bring truth into our lives and how His Holy Spirit can teach us and empower us over sin, can help us love people that we're having difficulty loving, forgive people that we don't want to forgive. God empowers us to live skillful lives. So how do we do that? Well, I think we need to begin where God began. In Psalm 78 says, "For He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel," that we should do what? Teach the law. Why do we teach the law? Well, C.S. Lewis said this, "A man doesn't call a line crooked unless he's seen a straight line." The law, the 10 Commandments, and by the way, that's more than just the 10 Commandments, but by the way, the 10 Commandments are a great way to start. But the Bible is the straight line. It teaches us how to live. And you do that by imparting the truth and then teaching your kids not to lie, not to steal, not to be hateful to each other. Over and over again, we face this with 6 kids. Barbara and I had slung 4 of our arrows out into school, and we had 2 left at home. And we were going on a date one night. As we were about to leave, I went to the kids in the kitchen, and it was Deborah and Laura. And I said to them, "Now, here's what your mom and I want you to do. We want you to get your homework done for tomorrow. And after your homework is done, I don't want you to watch any TV, but I want you to read a good book and just use some quiet time to rest up for the week ahead. You got it? You understand it?" "Oh yeah, Dad, we got it. We got it. No TV." So we went out on a date. We had a great evening. And you know, by the way, this is Pentecost weekend. That's the Holy Spirit coming, right? Let me tell you something. Parents need the indwelling work of the Holy Spirit because He helps you catch your kids doing things right, and He feels sorry for the helpless parents, and He helps us find them doing something wrong. So on our way back from our date, at the top of the hill, as I began to slide down the driveway, the Holy Spirit said, "Turn your lights off and go into stealth mode." So we did. We slid in quietly. We turned the car off, and we got up, and we walked down the sidewalk, and we looked in the kitchen window. They couldn't see us, but both of our daughters had their heads on the island. One was lying across the island like this. The other one was like this on a stool, and the glow of the TV was bouncing off of their faces. So I said, "Barbara, you stay right here and watch what happens." So I went around to the back door. I wrestled around with my keys and got it going and walked into the kitchen, and there they were. And I said, "Hey, girls, what have you been doing?" "Oh, nothing, Dad." "Did you do your homework?" "Yeah." "Did you watch any TV?" "Oh, no, Dad, we wouldn't have done that. You told us not to do any TV." And I said, "Really?" "Oh, no, we haven't watched any TV." And I said, "Well, now we got 2 problems. Number 1, I told you not to watch TV. Turn around and look at your mom out there through the window. Just wave at her. We've been watching you watch TV for the past few minutes. I got 2 problems. Number 1, you've disobeyed me. Now you've lied to me." You know what we did? We grounded them from all media for 30 days. It was glorious. We were praying God would help us catch them again doing something like that. Character is forged when children experience accountability for their choices. It is good to inspect what you expect. God does that with us. I thank God I had a mother who did that with me. First biblical mandate, teach them how to love God and others. Second one, teach them how to make wise choices, develop their character. Third one, this is not relevant today at all. Identity. Identity. Keep in mind this was developed in 1990. I'm not just reading the headlines of the newspaper. I'm reading the scriptures. Children need to know whose they are, their spiritual address, and who they are. Look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. What is there unclear about that? Very clear. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. I want you to listen to me very carefully. Our kids are being put on the spot in the marketplace, in school, as they work out in sports, as they do piano, dance, other things that they're involved with. They're being put on the spot with some really foolish choices that people are making. What they need to hear you say is the God who made you is the only one who has the authority to define you. The God who made male and female is the only one who has the authority to define what that means. We can't self-define. That's not the solution. So there's 3 points in here. 3 ways: spiritually, emotionally, and sexually. We are made in God's image. Spiritually, emotionally, and sexually. Just real quickly on each of those. First, spiritually, we're image bearers. We bear the image of the Almighty. And I stumbled on this one, but let me tell you something. This is worth its weight in gold. Barbara and I decided to invite 5 of our grandchildren to go on a road trip with us to Cincinnati. And we took them to the Creation Museum. Ken Ham is a good friend, and he invited me to come up. And so we went up there, and we made it a 2-day road trip with the zip lines they had and going to the Creation Museum. And we did it right. We talked about what they were seeing and how our origin as human beings determines who we are. We're just not a bunch of random molecules. There is a designer, a divine designer, who kicked this whole thing off. And so over and over again, we were talking about a Christian worldview. How can you handle the lies that you may hear in school if you don't know what a straight line is? So we talked about that the whole time, and then the kids came back and reported later in school that they were being put to the test. And what they had learned as they had seen all the displays and as we talked about creation and how that determines who we are, had helped them just stand strong as young followers of Christ. So 2 years passed, and Ken Ham built the ark. $70 million, it's the largest wooden structure in the world. And it's quite interesting, I want to tell you. And we asked if any of the kids would like to go back with us. 13 of the kids want to go back with us, and 5 adults. So we caravan back to the Creation Museum and the ark. And we went to the Creation Museum first and then the ark second. Now I'm going to tell you something. I love Disney World. I love Disneyland. I love theme parks. But at the end of the day, what have you taught? Have you taught them a Christian worldview? I think what Ken Ham and his team have done is for grandparents and parents. He has teed it up in golf terms. He has teed it up for us to whack it. And take our kids and help them realize there is a God who made us, and he has authority over us. I love what A.W. Tozier says. I've been saying this an awful lot recently. Listen carefully. The most important thing about you is what you think and believe about God. It is only as you think rightly about God that you can rightly think, rightly evaluate yourself. Romans 12:3 says, let every man think rightly of himself. How do you do that? You put God up and go, that's my creator. Now, who am I? I've got a spiritual address. Emotionally is the second one. Not spend a lot of time on this, but this is one of the least understood aspects of being created in God's image. I think the Christian community is afraid of this. We're afraid we're going to run off on some tangent. Parents, grandparents need to engage with our kids and get in this book and find out that God is a God of emotion. And we need to help our kids name their emotions, what they're feeling, and that they represent God, and that emotions aren't wrong. It's the use of them that can make them wrong. And then this last one, sexually. I'm going to tell you something. I hear so many stories of young people today, junior high, high school, who have been put on the spot about what they believe about homosexuality, about transgender. And we've got to equip our kids to know how to love people who aren't like us, how to love people who don't believe like us. But we also need to teach them to stand strong, that God didn't stutter in Genesis 1:27. Male and female. What's the question we asked 7 months ago when our number 24 was born? What is it? 2 choices. Facebook has 60. This is the family of God. Let me just be honest with you. I am grieved for the next generation. I am grieved with them. They're being damaged, not beyond repair, but they are being damaged, and they're going to carry that with them for the rest of their lives. If you don't engage the next generation on sexual identity issues according to God's perspective, the world will overwhelm your child. That's a guarantee. They are being overwhelmed now. Why do 2/3 of the kids graduate from high school and stop going to church? It's not relevant. This church is. Steve is. And parents, grandparents, listen carefully. You and I must be safe people for our kids to come and confide in. We can't come unhinged if our kid comes in at 15 years of age and says, you know, I'm just kind of questioning my sexual orientation. You may want to panic inside, but hide it. Talk to your spouse about it. Talk to some other couples about it. And then if I might, I'd like to recommend the book Barbara and I just finished. The chapter we wrote on sexual identity took us 40 hours to write. You know why? Because I didn't want to come down on anybody hard. I wanted to give parents the very best advice they could have of tackling this subject and all 3 of the others. I don't take a penny of royalties, so this is not to take care of our Swiss chalet. I am all about the next generation. Be a safe person with your kids. Finally, the 4th one, mission. We've talked about knowing who to love, that's God, others. We've talked about character. We've talked about our identity, whose we are and who we are. The 4th one is mission. Children need to discover and embrace God's assignments for their lives. A couple of passages for this one. The blank there is God's assignments. One of my favorite verses. I love this verse. This gives young people great hope. Quote this verse to a junior high school kid who's struggling with knowing who he is and where he's headed. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. That word workmanship means God's work of art. He creates unique people, and He's got some unique assignments. This is the way we defeat selfishness and the emotional swings of adolescents. We talk to them about their mission and being on mission and doing what God has called them to do. And of course, we know how the book of Matthew ends. Matthew chapter 28, 19 and 20. This is the Great Commission. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. This is how your mission statement ends here at Bellevue. Not just loving Christ, loving others, sharing Christ with them, but making spiritual multipliers. Grandparents, you can be a part of this with your kids. Encourage them to be missional in their thinking. And I think one of the prime ways we can do this as adults is to have our own mission and be on mission. So the question is this morning, what's your mission? What are you about? What does God have for you to do that you and you alone, that He wants you to do? What is it? I don't think we ever outgrow our need for our mission. I recently stepped out of the presidency of family life, and as a result, I have taken a step back in evaluating what is and what must be the mission for Barbara and me going forward to the sunset, to the horizon, because I don't believe retirement is biblical. There is no word retirement in the Scriptures. Be on God's mission all the way to the finish line. Share about the adventure with your kids. What you learned as you were encountering someone for Christ. Talk about what God's saying to you about the mission, how you came to that conclusion, and help your child sort through all the data about him that he's having to confront. And then train them. Training is over and over and over again to be on mission. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, it says in Psalm 127:4. Children are like arrows in the hand of a warrior. Children are not arrows that are stuck in the back of the help me here. What quiver? Couldn't think of it. Children aren't designed to stay in the quiver. They're supposed to be aimed and let go. When we took our daughter Ashley to college, I'd thought about it for months. She had graduated from high school, and she wanted to be an Ole Miss Rebel. Yeah, I know. Being from Arkansas was kind of tough, but we took her, and I got to tell you, we stalled as long as we could stall as we moved her into that little apartment where she was going to stay. And finally, I said, Ashley, we've got to go. Come on downstairs with us and let us pray for you. And as we gathered in that hot parking lot in Oxford, Barbara and I huddled around her, and I started to pray, and I started sobbing. This was my firstborn. I'm letting the arrow go. Game time. I couldn't pray. Barbara was crying so hard she couldn't pray. It was pitiful. Our own daughter had to pray for herself. So we drive away, we drive up the road, and there she is down there on the corner. And I'm driving the pickup, because it takes a pickup to take a girl to college. I turned to Barbara and I said, that does it. I'm hiring a surrogate father to launch the other 5. There's not enough of my heart to break 5 more times. Don't just let your children go. Launch them on a mission. It's a desperate need today for Christian young people. Grandparents speak into the kids' lives. Parents. So there you got it. That's the result of what I studied. Relationships, character, identity, mission. And one of the privileges God has given me is watching our kids leave. We have an empty nest now. And at the 50th birthday party, there was something happened that I'm going to give you the privilege of listening to, not to brag on myself or what Barbara and I have done with our son Ben, but he wasn't at the birthday party. He was in Estonia because the Iron Curtain had just dropped. And he went to share his faith with kids on the university campus in Estonia. He wasn't at my birthday party, but fortunately someone pushed a tape recorder and recorded just a little clip of what he said to me on that 50th birthday. I want you to listen in to what he said.
You know, we did pretty good. We got Ashley and Michael over here from Memphis, and we got Samuel down here from Fayetteville in a windy, rainy drive down the pig trail last night, arriving at our house at 2 in the morning. But we couldn't arrange for a direct transcontinental flight from Tallinn to get Benjamin here. The best we could do was to get him here by telephone, and he should be on the line with us. Benjamin, are you there?
I'm here.
What time is it in Tallinn?
It's 5:15.
5:15. You're ready for dinner, huh?
Hardly.
Well, you know what today is, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard the rumor.
Yeah. What have you been thinking about today as you've reflected on your dad's 50th?
Man, I've been, and I apologize for the start of the conversation. I've been crying for the past 5 minutes. Dad, I think I'm looking at the same picture you guys are. I guess it's still up. It's you and me at the cross.
Yes.
And as I reflected on that, the one thing that stood out to me was that, Dad, no matter what we've done in the 22 years of my life, and the cross has been central to everything. You've been a trailblazer by showing us the way, by showing us that the cross was everything to you, and it should be everything to us. And so, I mean, I know you know this, but that's why I'm here. And this won't mean a whole lot to everybody else there, but when I left this summer, we just had a big going away at the airport. And, I consider myself to be a pretty big guy, pretty strong. But, even as big as I am and, as tough as I appear to be, it was a hard day to leave. And I wrote about it in my journal. I said yesterday was really an amazing day. Leaving Little Rock, wow. I never really thought I would be so scared. So not wanting to leave. But when I hugged Dad, it was as if the whole world could attack me and I would be safe. Dad, that's how it's been my whole life. I mean, nothing mattered at that point to me when I was hugging you. And I just want to thank you for being my dad and for showing me the way.
It's messy. And many of you are in messes right now. We'd like to conclude our service by praying for you and have some people around you pray for you. And so if you're in one of the following groups, everybody bow your heads if you would. If you're in one of the following groups of people, just stand if you'd like somebody to pray for you. If you need prayer for God to grant you favor as you seek to impact the next generation, would you stand? Good for you. If you're a childless couple here, if you're a childless couple and you'd like to ask somebody to pray for you that God would bless you with children, Would you stand? Bless you. There's a third group that's a hidden group in the church. It's parents of prodigals. Barbara and I know about this. Your request prayer for a child who has abandoned his or her faith. Maybe they still live at home. Maybe they're an adult child now. Would you stand? And would someone around you pray for them? Put their hand on you? And then another group of people, single parents and blended family parents who need courage, strength, because it's hard work. You stand. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you for these groups that are standing. Grant favor to those who want to impact the next generation. Show them how. Bless them indeed. Wear them out, using them to change lives through Jesus Christ. For childless couples who need your favor, would you bless the desire of their hearts? And for the parents of prodigals, there is no hurt like that. Be near them, I pray. And for single parents and blended families, give them courage not to quit and hang tough with their kids. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.